Welcome
We
back,
got
everybody.
we got yanked back in. It
That's
was
it.
powerful. But I think everybody in our group got to introduce ourselves. That was a good plus there. I'm going to bring up my screen share again in a second while we let everybody back into the room.
Welcome. All right, welcome back. I hope you all had a great session. We're going to spend some time calling on each group to give a little wrap up, but we'll wait till the slides come back up on the screen. All right, so we'll go in group order, but we'd like to hear from somebody in each group. What were some of the key highlights from your group? What were some of the unique creative ways to help Mrs. Smith, and were there any common ideas? So maybe I can call on somebody from group 1.
We had some great ideas amongst the group. We talked about tablet lending programs, and it was nice to know that there are a number of agencies within our communities that are lending out tablets, but that are also providing the education, whether it's through volunteers and whether it's in person or virtually. They're actually teaching people how to use the tablet so they can stay connected virtually.
From group 1, or we can head over to group 2.
Oh, Heidi, I was just about to say, also looking at the creative ways, so a lot of opportunities for offering services virtually, but also possibly in the evening, right? So, because most of us are daytime providers, but there was also an organization that provided spiritual kind of a peer group in the evenings for people that wish to do that. So that was good to know.
Thank you. So group 2.
Okay. So we talked about lending technology as well and different needs. We did want to highlight and focus on how Mrs. Smith feels isolated and scared. So addressing that first by reducing some of the fear, if that be by connecting Mrs. Smith with a nurse to help her be prepared of different health and safety measures, more education for COVID to help reduce fear, connect with different services. We talked about trying to find ways to connect Mrs. Smith to her daughters since she lives alone. And as she also has early stages of Parkinson's, that was another health need. But when we talked about connecting her to her daughters and her church community, we talked about the devices and the different organizations that lend out devices. But we did also discuss how sometimes that could be an area of concern, is that some people might not have the best understanding or background with some tech, or now with the new virtual platform. So then to kind of fill that gap, it was discussed of other services that I've used over the telephone by step of how to navigate, for example, Zoom. So we really wanted to focus first though at the bottom of the primary needs of the health with Parkinson's and of course with COVID, and educating to help reduce fear.
Great, thank you. Any other comments from group 2? Some great discussion. Okay, from group 3.
All right, so we discussed many different aspects of each person's background and what job and what role they play in different organizations, and we came up with some ideas of volunteers calling clients, so calling Mrs. Smith and doing like wellness checkups. We talked about psychoeducational art groups. These could be held virtually, so like painting sessions or mindfulness training. And then again, with the virtual programs, some seniors social and wellness programs. And then just providing resources and removing any barriers to technological changes. And yeah.
Thank you. And we are now at group 4.
All right, so we also are just aligned with all the other groups as well. So just a lot of discussion or thoughts around providing virtual programming, grocery supports, Also the telephone call follow-ups as well, providing referrals for a variety of different resources, Meals on Wheels, and just kind of, because she's isolated, also just asking her neighbors, or just kind of being aware of which neighbors would be willing to do some social distancing visits with her, just to kind of check in, seeing that her daughters are not close by. So that was another point. And then also connecting her with local distress centers, just in case she would ever need to contact, especially with that feeling of fear and isolation, to reach out if she's in distress of any sort. And that's it.
Great, thank you. And our group 5.
Well, this is great because being group 5 means I'm last, so I can definitely call upon anyone in my group who wants to share, because I get to talk all the time. Does anyone else from group 5 want to chime in and kind of give their take on our group? Be brave.
I'll add here.
Thanks, Amy.
Thanks. Awesome ideas. We had all very similar ones. But I think we had also hit on empowering Mrs. Smith. So empowering her to learn how to safely exit the home before any anxiety builds up, and also maybe to be a volunteer or help deliver some of these programs and supports, because it did say she was quite active and took care of herself. So we thought, let's empower her as well to give back and to feel good.
Thanks, Amy.
Great. So really great discussion. It sounds like a lot of the groups kind of found similar themes. And also, connecting back to what we heard today in the presentation, and as well, maybe just kind of some of those questions, some of those comments might be answered as we go through the various sessions. So we have things coming up, I think, that really tie to a lot of that conversation as well. So great discussion. Anyone have anything to add? Anything they thought of just after they left their group? Feel free to unmute and pop that in. I'm just going to ask, there was a note in the chat, will a recording be available of all of the sessions and today's session? So yes, we have been recording. We will provide back to the participants, handouts and recordings that are available. Breakout rooms are not recorded, but main sessions would be recorded. So
I have a question.
yes.
You talk about your clients. You talk about people who are currently receiving some sort of assistance, social awareness or something. What happens to these seniors who have been quite independent, have not relied on social services, have not been going to the food bank, but suddenly they are in COVID and they don't know what these services are, and maybe a bit ashamed to feel that they need those services maybe. What do you do with them?
Great thought. I think that question should be open to the floor. What do people say? Any ideas?
I really I want to say I love that question. And it reminds me of another thing that I loved, which is the idea to give her opportunities to support other people. Often it's so much easier to give than to receive, and find meaningful connection through giving. But yeah, I think it's that's the $1 million question.
I was going to say the same. That is the big question, right? Because we all know how to support our clients, but really, how is it that we support people that are not connected to us, that need that connection? So how does that one person or two, whatever, how does that person get connected into some pathway?
These people are sitting in their apartment alone. No one knows they have that need. And unless they're seen by a nurse or some person getting their blood or test or something, they will never speak to anyone. So there they are, huddled in their apartment for the last year and a half. How do you help those? Or how do you find those?
When we put together the Isolation and Connection report back in the fall, the ultimate question that we put into that report was about this exact thing. How do you reach the people who are out of your line of sight right now? So over the course of our 5 sessions, we're hoping to also talk a little bit more about that communications piece, this technology pieces, those tactics that you use to find people who are hard to find. So there are multiple different initiatives at Long-Term BC. We've been engaging organizations that are doing different types of ambassador type programs where people in a particular neighborhood or building are checking in on their other neighbors. There are organizations that are doing some cool things in terms of using like things like Google AdWords, because like for example, a senior who was normally not as isolated and during COVID has become isolated, they may already be online to some degree and might but may not be specifically accessing services, but they might be typing in, what do I feel lonely on Google, and then see a relevant ad toward that. So I think in short, that's a very challenging question that's definitely will require deep reflection on ways we can come out with new and creative things, and that's sort of why one of the themes there's actually 2 of the themes that are relevant: connect, being how to reach those isolated seniors, and then innovate, how do you come up with something that's not been outside of our traditional methods.
And sorry, there's a hand up as well. You have your hand up, you can go ahead and speak. I think it might be Christine.
Yep, it's me. Yeah, and I think one of the things that I thought about when, I'm sorry, I don't know who asked the question, but what it really is about stigma. And I think if we can reduce the stigma of accessing service or asking for help, that is the key. And so if you can get the information out into people's hands in such a way that isn't stigmatizing or isn't embarrassing or becomes normalized, I think you'll have a better chance of people acting on their need to kind of reach out and connect with some of those services.
Excellent point. And there's some great conversation going on in the chat as well. And I think it might be interesting to have this discussion again on our last session as part of our networking as well. So we have some ideas of looping back to there. So keep that question in your mind at each session that you're in, because that is the goal. That is why we wanted to have this conference, is how do we reach the people we're not reaching, and how do we even know who they are or where they are? So, do keep that in your mind as you go through. I'm just going to read a couple of things, and then we're getting close to time for today. So, but there's some really great stuff here. So I'm going to walk you through a few of these pieces. So again, there's some comments around connecting with family physicians to share information. So again, some seniors are accessing their physicians. I know some also were even, concerned about doing that over COVID, but physicians are typically a good source for information. Is there a government post link for service in the news bulletin board or radio channels? Accessing where they shop, pick up the mail, go to the bank. Again, caregivers, care partners, family, friends, neighbors all need to be connected and supporting each other. We've seen the power of media during COVID-19. Leveraging these outlets may help to reach those who are isolated. My sense is that people are spreading the word as they become more aware other friends, families, and neighbors that might be in need. And again, some of that came up in Lee and Donna's presentation as well. People, somebody hears about a service, they know they have a friend who's isolated, they call their friend. So their friend hears about that, then the friend calls another friend. Many people were connected to a variety of senior social groups prior to the pandemic. Usually people from these groups connect with other members to find out how they are doing. Virtual cultural activities, local newspapers are still being delivered. Counselors across the region have been helpful. Maybe a government message alert, COVID helplines, connecting with supers in apartment buildings to put up posters in elevators, staircases, laundry rooms, posting at the COVID-19 vaccination clinics, and some buildings have a tenant-led newspaper bulletin board. So we've got great ideas, great thought generating. And again, I think that leads us nicely into kind of talking about what's coming next. So again, next Monday, we have our session number 2, and we're going to talk a little bit about some successful initiatives. So I think some of what we're talking about now, you're going to hear from these initiatives as well. So we're welcoming Allison Mitchell from Region of Peel, Brandy Elliott from Alberta Health Services, Karen Archer-Miles from Nucleus Independent Living, Christine, and I should have checked the pronunciation, so I apologize, Savigny from Caledon Meals on Wheels, and Matthew Strader from Strader Edge Media. So again, these presentations are going to talk about some successful initiatives, whether they were virtual or written partnerships. So we're really excited about that as well. And that's going to be a bit of a panel presentation. So again, lots of time for discussion as well. So come prepared with your questions. And again, I want to thank everybody on behalf of the planning team and the steering committee for attending the session today, and looking forward to seeing you at our future sessions. We really want to thank, as Ray mentioned at the beginning, Sheridan College for hosting these sessions, and Kristen for all of your work behind the scenes, keeping us all connected and working through our tech challenges. Again, we want to thank the Region of Peel, the City of Mississauga, the City of Brampton, the Town of Caledon, Peel Senior Link, Seniors Life Enhancement Centers, Volunteer MBC, PCHS, Acclaim Health, and Indus for working on putting this together. Any of our planning team have anything else they'd like to add?
I think that's it, but I just wanted to wish everyone a great afternoon and let people know, the thoughts from the Jamboard networking activity. We're not just going to drop that. We're going to be going through that content to be able to share that with all the group and everyone who has participated. And for the upcoming sessions, we will leave registration open for the upcoming sessions. So tell others, from your networks to attend, because the more wide perspectives that we can bring into this conversation, the more we'll be able to innovate and collaborate and connect. So that's a little plug for the future sessions, but please do check that out. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to us at the by replying to your registration email. You should come to us and we'll be happy to help.
And the link for the next session will be sent out to you in advance of the session. There was a question about the link. So again, great. Thank you, everybody, and enjoy the rest of this lovely day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.